Welcome to the Mini Crisis, brought to you by the Tales of Crisis podcast. And welcome to episode 11 of the Tales of Crisis, with me, your host, Martin Swaffield. And tonight I'm joined by a different guest, Mr. Anth Poole. Welcome, Anth.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us. New to this channel, so do you want to just give the listeners a brief hobby history, how you got to this point?
Yeah, sure. I've not really been hobbying very long. When I lived in Derby, I'd moved away from Teesside from all my friends and stuff. It was just me and my wife living in Derby that I needed to somehow make friends in my 30s. And being in Derby, quite close to Nottingham, Warhammer was quite a big thing. We happened to pop in our shop. Took home a couple of those starter boxes of Stormcast models, painted them up, found out it was quite fun, relaxing, and thought, yeah, we'll give this a go. Luckily, we had quite a good local shop near where we lived, Boards and Swords Hobbies in Derby, where we've been for a few Marvel Crisis Protocol events. And I got them guys to start teaching me how to play, meet some other people, and played AOS for, I don't know, from when the Nighthaunt box came out, the Nighthaunt Stormcast box was released. I can't remember when that was. And I played pretty much
4 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
because that was the start of 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the start of 2. Yeah, so it was when that box came out. I got a bunch of Nighthaunts, painted all of that up in various schemes, hated it all, so put it all back in a box and did a Sylvaneth army with my wife where we did like a 4 seasons theme, played some doubles events and stuff, and that was quite fun. And then I went back to my Nighthaunt and played them pretty solid for 2 years, taking them up and down events. They were pretty rubbish at that point, so it was kind of a journey to try and get 3 2s and 4 1s at events, which is quite rewarding when you manage to get them and you've got your Zinchas on the table blasting everybody away, and sometimes pulling off victories against those more powerful factions. And then, lockdown hit and hobby motivation disappeared completely. Started playing on computer games again during that point, but when it started to look like hobby was coming back, some life changes, things that happened with me and my wife, and we decided we wanted to move back to Teesside. So it seemed like a good time for us to look at another game, and Marvel Crisis Protocol was something I'd always had my eye on because I enjoy Marvel. And I thought it was a good gateway game for my non-hobby friends back in Teesside that I might be able to drag some of them in. Rather than going to a pub every Friday, we could potentially have some games of Protocol, and they wouldn't have to buy any models, but if I owned the models, they could come round and we could roll some dice and it'd be quite fun. And that's pretty much how I got into Marvel. And met you guys from the Northeast through our friend Simon Rose, and then it's pretty much just spiraled from there. We get plenty of games in, go to events together, and try and get as many games as possible, really. I think we're all a bit obsessed at the moment.
Absolutely. I can't get enough of it either. But yeah, the beauty of things like WhatsApp, I think Simon was just like, I've got a friend who's coming back to the Northeast, can you join the WhatsApp group? And we're like, yeah, why not? And then we just all got talking about the same thing, and then went to similar events, which has been great. And we've got one coming up quite soon.
Yes, yeah.
Well, we'll be travelling again down to, this time even further south, down to Birmingham. So that'll be fun.
It will. Long drive, but it'll be worth it.
Absolutely. So it's a new year, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So this is the first podcast of 2022, which means we've got some changes, as always is the best way. So first off, Chalmers, who's been the co-host for quite a while, is taking a bit of a mini break. Hasn't given up completely, but won't be on as often as has been in the past. So expect more guests. So if anybody wants to come on the podcast and talk Marvel with me, feel free. Been to any events with me and want to go through those as well, then just let me know and we can set something up. Always looking for different guests. I'm starting a Tales of Crisis YouTube channel. So those that maybe have listened to this on YouTube in the past will have noticed that the last 3 or 4 episodes haven't gone up. So I'm going to create a separate channel. I'm going to stick everything up there. I'll still send them across to Chalmers to put on the Tales of War Games channel as well. So I'm in 2 places. But based on further news, you'll understand why we're having a separate channel. A couple of weeks ago, we recorded our first battle report for the channel. I've had some interesting time, shall we say, trying to edit said battle report. Basically done a test, sent it out to a few people to get some feedback, and over the coming weeks and months I'll be recording more, trying to improve it to a point where I'm comfortable to send it out to the public for you guys to see. And once it does, lots of feedback would be appreciated. You need to understand what people are looking for. Last but by no means least, we've started the new year with a new sponsor. So we previously were sponsored by Blackgate Games. Still a great store, not falling out with them or anything like that. But we, as many of you regular listeners will know, we spend a lot of time in the Bearded Card Trader, do a lot of events there. And so it just made sense to partner with them. So we are now sponsored by the Bearded Card Trader. So go check them out at thebeardedcardtrader.com. They're on Facebook as well. Great deals. They do a number of things. They stock a fair bit of Marvel Crisis Protocol, but they do everything from Legion to Games Workshop to board games, and as the name suggests, plenty of card games. So go check them out. We've had some news, lots of news in fact, but the more breaking news is Grunts. Yes. So this was revealed start of the year, I'm going to say, and there had been quite a bit of talk previously around Grunts and whether they would ever do it, and they had said, I think it was on stream or somewhere, that they weren't going to do individual lesser characters, shall we say?
Yeah,
so
like minions. They didn't want to do like minion models, did they?
How is it? Likes of Agents of S.H.E.I.L.D. or AIM lackeys, etc.
Mm-hmm.
However, we now have them in a very limited capacity. So what was your first impressions when you heard that these were actually coming out?
So I think, like everybody, I was a bit wary of having a board flooded with models, particularly having played through a season of the TCS League and it being spam central. It was already a bit overwhelming with the amount of models that were on the board sometimes when you were going into 7 wide lists, potentially even 8 wide lists, depending how many 2s people were taking. But I was quite intrigued by the idea of it, like depending on how they've done it. I think they've got a lot of goodwill at the moment, Atomic Mass Games, in that they seem to be doing things right, and I kind of just don't want to build into the, oh my god, this might happen. I'm kind of on the side of, let's just see, because they've done everything else right so far. I'm not going to get negative about them when I've not even seen what's coming. So I was kind of just looking forward to seeing what they were coming, and now we've seen them. I'm pretty happy with the solution they've come up with.
Yeah, I was very similar to yourself. I was concerned if there were lots and lots of them flying around, the game kind of loses a lot of the dynamics of the game, and also, you know, at its core, the game is about a load of superheroes throwing things around, throwing each other around, beating each other up. That's at its core, and if you've just got Hulk facing off against 10 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's not as exciting, is it?
No, not at all.
So, on the stream, they went through at a high level some key points, and I'll quickly cover those. So, the official term for them is Grunts, which I think is a great term. They do not cost any threat, and they are part of their parent character. So this was the good thing. So you're not going to see lots of them because they are tied to their parent characters. They're a bit like Magneto's metal constructs, but they can do a lot more. Yeah. They have their own stat card, but it's, from what we've seen, quite small. They activate on their parent's activations, and they take their actions before their parent. If parent is KO'd, the Grunts are KO'd. The units are specialised, and while some can interact with objects, not all of them can. Only one Grunt unit can be on the table at any one point. So even if you had multiple parent units, so units that can go with grunts, you can only ever have one grunt unit on the table at once, which is, I think straight away makes everybody go, ha ha.
Yeah, definitely.
You're not going to have the table flooded with them.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that just really made everybody just kind of calm down on what was coming. So.
Yep. And they're deployed with their parent at the beginning of the game, and I think that's the key thing. The ones we've seen so far have been 3 models on a single base. We're not talking about a single grunt, even though there's only ever one at a time. It's a group of grunts represented by a single entity as such.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that sounded great, and then we got to see some pictures of Nick Fury Jr. with his people jumping out of an imaginary helicarrier and a magic rope. And then we saw Daredevil and Elektra with their super ninjas. Personally, I was much more interested in the ninjas than the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. I thought the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, there was just something a bit like I loved Nick Jr., but I didn't really like the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
Yeah, I like them both. I think they've done the outfits really nicely for like the S.H.I.E.L.D. outfit in general. I just think it looks really nice. It might be the way, I don't think I'll paint them to that level, but I like that bluey purple. Really pops. It's really nice. I think obviously there's a lot of not complaints, but like meme stuff going on about the rope and this, that, and the other. But I mean, when you read the facts, like when you read the transmission about them jumping out of the
helicarrier.
Yeah, jumping out of the helicarrier to grab civilians, it kind of makes sense from that perspective. So I quite like them. Definitely be painting them all individually because it'd be a nightmare on one base. I might not even put all 3 on the base because I think maybe a bit more room with the 2 on would look good, but I do like the models. I think they look cool.
Yeah, I think, and like you say, it gives you room to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of flexibility, a nice big base for you to play around with.
Definitely.
So then we saw the cards. So Nick Fury is a 4 threat. Pretty standard, 4-3-4 on his defense, medium move, size 2, nothing fancy there, 6 health. Couple of attacks. Key thing for me is his first attack is character gains 1 power. So it's a guaranteed way to get a power. The second attack is power based on damage dealt. And then his spender it's interesting, it's range 3, strength 7, 3 power. But after the attack is resolved, an allied S.H.I.E.L.D. agent's character, which is the Grunts, within 3 of this character may advance short towards the character and then make their attack, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So you're essentially playing 3 power for a 7 strength attack and then a 4 strength attack from range 3, which is, it seems like you're getting, quite a lot from that. Considering people are quite happy to do 2 4 attacks with a rapid fire, so potentially doing a 7 attack followed by a 4 attack for just 3 power seems worth it.
Absolutely, and knowing that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents activate first and then Nick Fury goes, so essentially in one activation you could get the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents doing 2 pistol attacks, so 2 strength 4 at range 3, and then if Fury's got 6 power, he can then do his spender twice. So that's a fair bit of dice coming out from one activation.
Yeah, I think when Nick Fury might have been flipped and he's got that bit of power sat there, you could probably nuke a lot of characters down in one activation with Nick Fury at the top of the turn. So if it's your priority, Nick Fury's been dazed, comes back, and he's got this power and his grunts, he could potentially just put out a world of hurt.
Absolutely. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they play out. And all of that is just for 4 threat. The grunts themselves are not particularly... They're not going to hang around that long. So they are 2 health, medium move, size 2, and they are 1s across the board. As we mentioned, they've got pistol attack, which is just range 3, strength 4. What they do have, however, are some interesting special abilities, and we'll come to those in a minute. If we finish off Nick Fury, so he's got 2 special abilities. So the first one is Call in the Cavalry, and essentially this, for 2 power, means if there's no S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on the board, he can place some within 3 of him. Now, I'm not sure, actually, if I've read this right. So I think previously the thought was that he would be able to start the game and then call them in, but I don't think he does, because he starts the game with them on, doesn't he?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes life a lot easier. So I think when this was first revealed, there were a number of people, myself included, concerned that he would move forward, get these to drop out the sky within 3, pick up an extract, and go from there. So when they come down, as part of this call in the cavalry, they come down with an activated token.
Yes.
So they can't come down and then do something. However, what they can do is they are able to immediately interact with one extract objective.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be interesting. So this is going to be in the latter turns where you're going to be looking at, okay, fine, they're going to come down elsewhere.
I think it'll be really useful if Fury does daze someone himself. He's got an extract. He's got a bit of power. He doesn't have to move towards an extract. He can get them to come down and pick up an extract. And they're now, although they may drop that extract later when we get to the S.H.I.E.L.D. Grunts, they have a superpower that helps them still kind of keep the extracts on the side.
We'll talk about it now then. So as you brought it up, it's buy you time. And essentially, if the Grunts get KO'd or dazed, the controlling player gets to place the extract. So whereas normally, you would daze somebody and you'd put the extract as near to you as possible, in this instance, if you daze S.H.I.E.L.D. agent character, then the controlling player gets to place that, which is massive because it means you can place it much closer to your own people.
Yeah, I think it's great because let's say Nick Fury does daze that person, drops one of these guys down, they pick up that extract. Yes, they're probably going to die to the first attack that goes into them, but that means one of their characters is having to waste an attack into them and then potentially move quite far into your territory to then pick that up if they want to go and get it, which is going to leave them in a position where they are vulnerable, as opposed to as it is now, without the Grunts, Nick Fury would usually, let's say he dares the person on the first attack, he would have to move up and he's vulnerable. So it really keeps Fury in a position of power, essentially, a lot of the time.
Yeah, he's often just going to be quite literally sending his Grunts to do his dirty work, which is very thematic.
Yeah, 100%.
His last special power is Director of S.H.I.E.L.D, and this basically means if the Grunts are within 3 of him, they may reroll one of its attack or defense dice, and Nick Fury gains 1 power whenever the allied character deals damage or suffers damage. So Nick Fury is going to be getting power every time the Grunts either take some damage or do some damage, which is going to be great. And he's also giving them a reroll now. Their defense, as we said, is only 1, so that defensive reroll is not going to be clutched that often, but I think the attack reroll may well. 4 dice with a reroll. That's not bad for a freebie as such.
If you're chipping away 2 damage with that, then you're probably happy.
Absolutely. And then the last thing on Nick Fury is he is a leader. So he's a leader of affiliation S.H.I.E.L.D. So it'll be interesting to see who actually fits into that affiliation. I'm assuming Black Widow agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. will get in there. Probably Hawkeye.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Captain America? Don't know.
Maybe it just depends on what version of S.H.I.E.L.D. they've based it off, I guess, because obviously you wouldn't say from the films version he's not a member of S.H.I.E.L.D, is he? So it depends what version they've pulled it from.
Will be interesting to see which direction they take that. But yeah, and his leadership it's quite interesting. So it's if you have fewer victory points than your opponent, the first time each round an allied character is dazed or KO'd by an enemy effect, the effect after it is resolved, you score 1 victory point. So this is a bit of an anti-Black Order leadership.
Yes, yeah.
Or not necessarily anti-Black Order, but reverse Black Order leadership. And again, it kind of feels a bit Sam Spam-esque, as in, spam lots of characters, and you'll get you only get the 1 per turn, so you're not going to clock up loads from it, but it's still a good one to have.
It stops gaps being built. It keeps you in the game if you are losing people.
Yep. And then if you've got equal number or more victory points than your opponent, When an enemy character damages an allied character with an attack, the allied character may spend 1. If it does, after the attack is resolved, it may advance short towards the attacking character. So again, this is a bit of a, if you're ahead, you get to stay ahead. If you're behind, you get a way to try and close the gap, which I really like. I always kind of think every time I read one of these leaderships, well, what else can they do? And they keep finding different ways to do leadership that is quite unique. It's not like they're just constantly, just reroll defense dice, reroll attack dice.
Yeah.
Mine as well. They're finding lots of different ways to do it, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's 2 parts and it acts different depending on how the game's going for you. I'm not hugely fussed on moving towards, because I'm not sure. I mean, we're guessing, we don't know who's going to be in the S.H.E.I.L.D affiliation, but the characters that we've just mentioned, like Black Widow and Hawkeye, probably don't want them walking short towards people. But if you get some big hitters in there, then it's potentially a good gap closer, because it's a one cost warpath that you can just use every time, as opposed to using a tactics card for it.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a climbing gear in a way. It's that anti-Wakanda, anti-push mechanic. Somebody pushes you off an objective, spend a power, you're just going to walk back on the objective. And that is
it's very tactical, which is obviously in theme.
Yeah, very, very good. The only other thing is on the Grunts themselves, they've got a S.H.I.E.L.D operative special ability, and this is that the character cannot secure objectives, but it does not have to pay power when interacting with civilian or asset tokens. So that's going to be interesting, because for the majority of secures, this isn't going to be relevant, and for the majority of extracts it is. Obviously something like Research Station, it's not going to be of any use.
No.
But for most others, it will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is interesting, because I think it does make them want to play that interact game. So you find most affiliations, I think, side on the sense of, I want to pick blues, I want to pick secures when you win priority, and you try and have extracts that will suit you if you need them. But I think most affiliations lean into the secures more. So it'd be quite nice to have an affiliation that goes, actually, I'm absolutely fine for you picking secures, and I will take the extracts. So if you lose priority, you're probably going to still get what you want.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's interesting, because I feel like in the early stages of the game, it was more extract play heavy. Everybody, the likes of Angela coming out and just giving you those options. Web Warriors were very extract heavy at the time. I think you're right, the meta's probably shifted slightly to secure heavy, especially with Criminal Syndicate now the way they are. Black Order don't want high points value extracts. They often will go for something where, it's 2 victory points and difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can see that. I think Spider Foes probably want secures as well. So yeah, I think it will be good.
Even like traditional ones like Web Warriors now would prefer the secure, because it's a wider secure, and the wider secure is going to stay there for the whole game. So once the extracts are picked up, you move to your secures, and that's easier to manage when they're wide. So even like what you would have probably called extract affiliations before have probably moved into the secures, because people have realised once the extracts are picked up, you've still got 4 rounds of a game to play, or 5 rounds of a game to play. So the secures become a lot more important.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting how it shifted. I think it started secure when extract gone back to secure, and hopefully this will then lead us back into the extract world.
Yeah.
So overall, I think off the first viewing of the rules for them, they look great. I think knowing that they start on the board means that it doesn't allow Nick Fury to just move forward, take a pistol shot, deploy them within 3, they straight away pick something up. That doesn't happen. It does mean that they can double move, go pick something up straight away, and if they die, you don't really care, because 1, you can bring them back for 2 power. It's not too much of an issue, and 2, you still get to place that within 2. So there is still quite a powerful turn 1 play there, which
definitely
kind of surprises me a little bit considering they were moving away from turn 1 plays. The latest wave seemed to be very much shutting down turn 1 plays. But we shall see how they perform when it comes to it.
I think Mystique and Deception might start seeing a lot of people's lists.
Absolutely. I think that'll come back in, and people pulling them in, etc. will start to be seen again. You've still got to be careful, because even if you pull them in, they're still going to place it up, so you can't pick it up straight away. Previously you would Deception somebody in and then beat them up and then take the extract off them. I think easy to do.
Probably the tactic is if you can pull somebody in and actually not, because if you can keep them away from Fury, I think you probably pull them in. If you've got somebody with a throw them back again, and then let them have the little 4 dice shots at you occasionally, and just see whether you can keep them over the other side of the board and daze them when it suits you.
Yeah, I mean, one throw is probably going to kill them anyway. They've got 1 defense and 2 health, so...
Oh no, don't throw them at anybody or anything. Just throw them into a space further back. So keep on keeping them back away from Fury.
No, I think it's interesting to see how they've done this. The general approach to Grunts kind of gets my tick. I'm quite happy with the way they've done it. It'll be interesting to see. So other ones that we're aware of, as I mentioned before, are the ninjas with Daredevil and Elektra. And we've also got Red Skull is coming along with his...
There's rumours of Red Skull, rumours of Red Skull and Hydra potentially.
I thought that had been confirmed somewhere, but perhaps
I know it was mentioned by Rich of Rich Mid at some point, but I don't know if it's been confirmed from Atomic Mass Games.
I feel like it has, but I might be wrong on that.
Okay.
It's difficult at times to remember what's rumours and what's fact. But I then started a Twitter conversation about what would other people like to see, and when you start going through it, there's a hell of a lot of options they've got there, from aim lackeys all the way through to the Dollar Mirage to all sorts of different ways you could do this. So Doom bolts seem to be a popular request.
Yes. Yeah, I think Doom is probably the one that's been mentioned the most on Discord.
Yes. But then I think that's just because people want to see Doom in the Fantastic Four as much as Doom bots themselves.
Yeah, true.
So, the other thing we wanted to talk about tonight was the latest monthly event at the Bearded Card Trader. So both myself and Anth went down there along with Sam from the club. It was another good showing. We had Alan and the boys from Scotland came down once more, which was great. Boosted up the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once more we hit 14 this time. Another great event, well organised, well run, as always. I think, it's starting to become second nature to him now. We did have a slight issue with Longshanks, it being down for almost 2 days in the end.
Yeah.
But thankfully we were able to use old school pen and paper, and as there were only 14 of us, it wasn't too complicated to work out who fit where.
Yeah.
So, we'll go through it then. So my first game was against Paul Campbell, one of the Scots who'd come down with Alan, and he was running Criminal Syndicate, which of course I know very well. We went with Struggle for the Cube and Demons Downtown. I think I picked Demons Downtown because I think Paul got priority, and it was 19 threat. Paul has quite helpfully written a blog post on the game, so if people want to go into it in more detail, go and check out his blog post. It is thebovineoverlord.wordpress.com. So go check that out. He's got a great blog on there with lots of different bits and pieces, and he often writes up his MCP events. So he's done a write-up for this event. As I say, he was running Criminal Syndicate. For this one, he was running Kingpin, Omega Red, MODOK, Crossbones, Beast. And he had All According to Plan, Brace for Impact, Carbonanium Synthesizer, which is a card that I never see get used. I must admit, I looked at it when I got Omega Red for the first time. I was like, I can't see that happening much. but he used it to really good effect. Climbing gear and field dressing.
Mm-hmm.
My team was running Midnight Suns, so I had Blade, Black Cat, Dr. Voodoo, Ghost Rider, and Moon Knight, and then I picked a pretty standard one that I kind of pick quite often. So I had Bats the Ghost Hound, Med Pack, Patch Up, Siege of Darkness, and Climbing Gear. We deployed quite centrally, obviously, given what we were playing. I had Ghost Rider, Moon Knight... No, sorry. I had Ghost Rider, Black Cat, and Dr. Voodoo down the middle, with Blade on one side and Moon Knight on the other. And he deployed MODOK, Omega Red, and Beast down the middle, with Crossbones opposite Moon Knight and Kingpin opposite Blade. First turn, as usual, moving in, the usual toing and froing. I changed my mind and essentially sent Black Cat out wide and Moon Knight came back in. Blade went up and picked up his cube. He pushed Omega Red forward and Beast. MODOK stayed at the back, just hovering. Kingpin and Crossbones just moved up and picked up their cubes. Not a lot happened there. Mm-hmm. Then Beast went absolutely crazy. I've never known Beast do so well as he did in this game. Everything he did, it just went brilliantly, basically.
I'm a big advocate for Beast. I think he's a great 3 and he just gets overlooked a lot. But
he does, and I must admit, I often say this. I ran him in the early days when they first came out, and I was playing Toms a lot, and he was running Hawkeye a lot, and literally every game, Beast would move up, Hawkeye would shoot him with energy. Even with his rerolls on his defense, he just died. So I've got probably an unfair view on Beast, in fairness.
Yeah, I guess when he's facing a team that's primarily Mystic and not energy, he's probably not too bad.
Well, my hopes were high for Ghost Rider with his energy attacks, but it didn't pan out like that. Yeah, Beast managed to daze both Ghost Rider and Moon Knight, picking up the cubes. Then Black Cat moved around, staggered Crossbones just to slow him up a little bit. There was a fair bit. MODOK went up against Dr. Voodoo, and Dr. Voodoo held up extremely well against MODOK, which was good. You know, keeping Brother Daniel token on him meant that he had 6 Mystic defense.
Yeah.
So MODOK was kind of slightly shut down by that, which isn't often the way. Then that finished off with the score at 9-6 against me.
Okay.
Then I had priority, and I thought at this point I would get, hopefully, something back. But of course he played all according to plan. Beast then carried on his damage by throwing Blade into Black Cat. He managed to KO Moon Knight, get rid of him completely, and then I played Siege of Darkness. So Black Cat and Ghost Rider managed to daze Kingpin, Voodoo dazed Omega Red, Ghost Rider dazed Crossbones, and MODOK just hung around at the back trying to daze Dr. Voodoo and failed miserably. That pulled it back to 11 all.
Nice.
Black Cat then had, I think, 2 cubes at that point. Blade had 1. Black Cat was well out on the side. It was at this point that I started to make some... It was so close. All the way through this game, I thought, I haven't got a chance here. And yet I was still hanging in. Having played Criminal Syndicate for so long, I know they're such a tough matchup. I wasn't expecting much. Kingpin failed to hurt Blade, but he did stagger him, and he threw him off where he was on the portal. I used Patch Up to heal Black Cat because she was nearly dead. I think she was going to die from the cubes anyway. Nearly killed Beast, but I didn't. Beast then went after Black Cat, but couldn't quite kill her. Voodoo threw everything at Crossbones, but left him on a single wound. So he then threw him off the portal and KO'd Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider was a bit disappointing in this game. He didn't really do what I was hoping he would. So this is where it went wrong. So I had Black Cat out on the side. My view here was that I wanted Black Cat to essentially pick up, there was a cube next to her. She could pick that cube up and run away.
Yeah.
And based on my maths, that would have left us in a draw.
Yeah.
So the gamble was pass. I forgot that Omega Red was range 4 with his pull. I thought he was range 3. I didn't think he could make it. which is my own fault because I've played Omega Red for a long time. Yeah, so I was hoping that Omega Red would go down and try and deal with Blade,
and
then Black Cat could run on and jump onto an objective, because she was one of the very few characters. I think it was literally her and MODOK were the only two characters that were still on the healthy side.
Yeah.
So, whilst Criminal Syndicate count as 2, that's only on the healthy side. So I thought, even if he moved Omega Red down to capture the bottom objective, I could move her on, she'd still win it, because she was healthy. Or if he stayed in the middle, I could move him wherever. Unfortunately, like I say, he moved down, he pulled her in, and then it was close, but he just managed to daze her, which meant she dropped the cubes, which meant I couldn't do anything about it. So it went to 15-12.
Yeah.
It was a funny one. Like I say, had I run her away, there were a couple of things that could have happened down the bottom. It was a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. He's a great player. It was a great game, really tactical. I was very surprised how close it was, as I say. I think I was expecting it to be much more, I considering Ghost Rider didn't do very well against Criminal Syndicate, I was expecting it to go terribly. But they hung in there, they did well, and it was a really great close game.
Yeah, I think you always get a bit of a knot in your stomach when you come up against Criminal Syndicate when you get to the table and your opponent's got them, because you're a bit like, how do I unlock this puzzle? They are one of those affiliations when you just look at them and think, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of those ones where you sit there and you kind of go, I know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
But I still can't do anything about it. So yeah, I mean, he played his team tactics cards well. He did some of the predictable things. I knew he was going to play all according to plan, but it was just one of those ones where you kind of hope he doesn't. And that kind of meant that I had an opportunity turn 2 to play Siege, but I think I would have only got 2 characters, because I was always on the back foot. He was more aggressive than I ever played Criminal Syndicate, which kind of caught me. I was expecting him more to play more defensive, but he was quite attack-minded with it, and I kind of caught me off guard, which meant I was often starting a turn with somebody dazed because he'd activated first. I suppose it's a good way to play it in that even if you daze somebody to a point where you lose priority, you can always keep it again. He had priority turns 1 and 2 because he won the roll-off. Turn 3, he was losing priority, but he played all according to plan, which gives him 3 turns of being able to be aggressive, and it meant my Siege was never quite as potent as I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, Paul was a really good player, and as you'll find out, did rather well for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Who was and how was your first game?
So my first game was against Sean. Sean Peterson. I think he goes down quite regularly to the beaded carded trade events. And I actually played him the first time I went to an event there, and we played the same matchup, Air Force versus Brotherhood. So I took Air Force to this event. I couldn't decide on who I was going to take, and I literally decided the night before. I think I was in our WhatsApp group, still mulling it over the night before, and because I hadn't played for a while, I decided I was just going to take a list full of things that roll lots of dice at you and try and punch you into oblivion. And luckily, my first game against Sean was a very similar list. So we basically played 19 threat. I can't remember what our extract was, but it was one of the 19 threat. I think it was a 19 threat, but we got secures. Sean,
in defense of Anth, just for the listeners' benefit, Anth didn't know at the time of playing his games that he would be talking about them on the podcast.
No, so I didn't make any notes. I have reached out to Sean, but unfortunately he's not read my messages. Hannah did fortunately get back to me, who was my second round opponent, so I did get some of this detail. But I can't, for whatever reason, we didn't even register the extracts and skewers on Longshanks like we normally would. I think we gave the score to JP and he just put it in, and we didn't put the extracts in there. So we definitely ended up on Gamma. Sean picked blues, skewers. I got to pick we got the extracts and I got to pick the threat value, and obviously being Air Force, I decided I'm just going to take a big bunch of brawlers and go down the middle and see what happens. And we just had an absolute whale of a time, just punching each other like stupid amounts. Magneto throwing buildings left and right. I can't really go through it round by round, but by the end of it, I could have probably got more points if I wanted. I could have ended on 15 on the last round, but I didn't want to be one of those guys who intentionally puts myself on 15 so I can potentially score 20 the next round. So I just finished it off and finished the game on 16. I think Sean finished on 7 or something like that. And yeah, it was a really fun game. I played Sean, like I say, in the tournament before. Super good opponent. He knows his brotherhood. He likes to run each of his models that he takes on a weekend. He doesn't like to leave anybody out, which I think is really cool. You know, you've built that roster of 10 and he wants to get everybody on the board. So sometimes he'll put out a maybe suboptimal roster, but he doesn't care because it's about the fun of it. And I just thought that was really cool. And he's super hyped for Juggernaut coming out. So yeah, it was a really good game.
Excellent. So I had your round 1 opponent in round 2. So I played Sean in the next round.
Very good.
And as you mentioned, he likes to spread the love of his roster, which often has some interesting effects.
Yeah.
So we played Fear Grips World and Demons Downtown. There's a running theme here. Lots of Demons Downtown, which is great for me with Ghost Rider and Voodoo both being immune to Incinerate.
Yes.
So to start off, I ended up with the same 5 as I had before. So Voodoo, Ghost Rider, Blade, Black Cat and Moon Knight. We had some interesting challenges with terrain. Moon Knight was blue tacked to the side of a building because it had slanted, disjointed building roof, which was interesting. So I had Voodoo out on the right, Ghost Rider Blade in the middle, Moon Knight out on the left, and Black Cat kind of loitering depending on how things went. I wasn't sure where she was going. Moon Knight went up the left, picked up his extract, picked up the hammer, sorry. Mystique went up my right, picked up... Oh, sorry. He was running. It's probably a vital piece of information as well. Mystique, MODOK, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Toad. So I was expecting him to be running Magneto.
Yes.
I picked my list and Team Tactics card, assuming he was running Magneto. And then he didn't run Magneto, and that kind of threw me. And then, as I say, we were talking about it, and he explained that, as you mentioned, he likes to spread it around, which is great. It just kind of threw me to start with. So he played Mystique's leadership, which was great, and he didn't realise about her leadership. There was something about her leadership that he was playing wrong to his detriment. So I explained how it all worked. It meant that he was getting it. I think he only thought you could do it on the first one.
Okay. So you thought it was a bit like the X-Men one?
I think so, yeah. I might be remembering that wrong. But yeah, I remember having a conversation about it where we were like, no, actually, you can do that and that. And he was like, oh, right, well, that makes life even better. I do think it is an underrated leadership ability. I think quite often overlooked and everybody just goes with Magneto. But I do think Mystique's leadership is good.
I've got my friend Danny Clark, who I play with in Teesside, and he absolutely adores Mystique, and he runs pretty much Mystique leadership all of the time. He runs a wide list with Juggernaut in there on TTS, and it's a pretty good list. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. So yeah, Moon Knight went up, Mystique came up and took that one, then Toad came up on that flank to try and threaten. Didn't really do much. MODOK picked up his other hammer. Vision came into the middle, and Scarlet Witch went off around the Mystique area, which I think was a mistake because that meant she was facing off against Voodoo, and that did not end well for her. No. My Team Tactics cards, looking at the pictures, again, I think exactly the same, apart from I had Highway to Hell on Ghost Rider instead of Climbing Gear, because I was expecting Magneto, and I thought I'll just pull him out of the way. Instead, I got MODOK. And spoiler, I pulled MODOK all the way. So Sean pulled into a slender lead, going 4-3 up, turn 1. Then it was a bit of a strange one in that Blade came across with Voodoo. I think I managed to daze Mystique on that flank. Moon Knight then came in and started throwing crescents galore at everybody. And that's where it got interesting. Mystique threw a building at Blade, a size 4 building, and dazed him, but I think he thought he had one of the hammers when he didn't. It was Dr. Voodoo who had the hammer.
Okay.
Vision was quite a pain in the middle. He took quite a beating. Ghost Rider went up and took MODOK into the corner, which was interesting. Toad came and took the hammer. The interesting thing he did, he took the hammer off of MODOK with Toad.
Yeah.
And then ran it off into the corner to keep that victory point secure.
Yeah.
I think that was probably a mistake, because I think with hammers, it's one of the few extracts you want to run away with. Most extracts I can totally see running away, but with hammers, the benefit is not to run away. So
especially on MODOK.
Yeah, I would have left it on MODOK and just shot.
Blasted.
Yeah. I managed to pull ahead, where are we? 6-7. So I was ahead by 1 in the next turn. And then I had a combination of some good luck, some Siege of Darkness. I killed Scarlet Witch. I killed Mystique. MODOK was just away in the corner. Dazed Vision. And then Toad was hidden in a corner somewhere else. At which point it was 7-15. We played it out. It was a foregone conclusion at that point. Vision refused to die, and it ended up 21-8.
Yeah.
Really good game. As you say, Sean's been there a number of times. Second or third time I've played Sean there. He does like to share it around, as you mentioned, which is always good. Gives it a bit of variety. He's not looking to go 3-0. He's just looking to have some fun, which is, to be fair, the majority of the crowd at Bearded Card Trader.
Yeah, definitely.
What makes it so good, going down to those events.
Yeah, I think you ended up getting Vision because he didn't bring him in our game, which I think was a mistake. We discussed after the game, with it being on Gamma, I said to him, Vision, I was surprised you didn't bring Vision, so I think you ended up getting him because he didn't play in the round before.
Fair enough. And he was second or third time I've played against Vision. And yeah, he's tough, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's always been tough, and obviously having the beam, he's got a good throw. It's particularly good in Brotherhood with that throw. And you put into central one down there, and you can't move him. You can put him on the central object on Gamma, and he just doesn't move. So yeah, he's hard to get rid of. Yeah,
absolutely. So that put me on 1-1. You were obviously 1-0 going into round 2. How did your round 2 go?
Round 2, I got to play Hannah, who does quite, I think she works at Bearded Card Trader, I believe. Or she I think she's just started, helps out there. She started helping out there. But I'd seen some of her paintings on Facebook. She put some of the painting up on there. I think she did like a nice Iron Man painting on the side of one of the buildings, one of the brownstone buildings at Bearded Card Trader. And she did an amazing Midnight Suns looking roster, all black and gold, which is absolutely stunning. So she's an incredible painter. So I was quite excited to play her, actually. We spoke at lunch before the round was drawn, and she seemed really nice. And yeah, we started off, we rolled for priority. I think I lost the priority again, but Hannah picked extracts, I believe, and I ended up pulling demons. So we went demons and struggle for the cubes. No, not struggle for the cubes. Maybe alien ships. One of the single extracts. And we ended up on 19 threat from demons. And Hannah was running as Guardians of the Galaxy list. So it was primarily Guardians of the Galaxy, but I had a couple of Asgardians in there for flavour. In this game particularly, I was expecting Guardians to come out, but she ended up going with the Asgardians. Confusing. So she went with Thor, Loki, Ronin, and Angela. She was desperate to play Guardians of the Galaxy, but she thought they would be better on demons with Thor's leadership, being able to get rid of the Incinerator. I'd have been quite a fighty one. And I went with She-Hulk, Angela, Domino, and Scarlet Witch. So very much again Smash Mouth list. Yeah, Smash Mouth. I mean, my aim for the day was just punch and kill my way to victory if I could. And it started out a bit cagey, a bit tense. We'd both tried on occasion to get the single extract and failed, positioning ourselves around the demon portals. I think we ended up tying in the middle, as often happens in the first round. We both held our own. Loki stayed at the back for her. And I did have Domino on my back one, and I decided to risk it, and I went for a last time on my last activation with Domino to pick up the extract, and I managed to get it. So despite losing my own back objective, I managed to get the extract, which obviously in those single extract games can make a big difference to the game. Round 2, I probably underestimated Thor a little bit. You see him on the table so often and he just doesn't do what you want to do. And I clumped up a bit too much around the secures, and Hannah rightly saw that I'd made that mistake, and Thor came lumbering in to do his big area attack. And I can't remember how she did it or how it worked exactly, but she was rolling something like 11 dice into 3 of my characters each.
Yeah, I heard about this, and it's quite an impressive way to do it. I'm not sure what the combo was, but
yeah. I can't remember if it was off a card or something, but yeah, she was rolling 11 dice into She-Hulk, Scarlet Witch, and who else did I say I had? Angela. No, it wouldn't have been Angela. It was Domino, because Angela was quite far up. And yeah, I was at this point genuinely thinking I'd lost the game, because I was thinking if this goes off, you're potentially dazing 2 of those and probably took a big chunk out of She-Hulk. Unfortunately for Hannah, Thor does what Thor does, and he absolutely whiffed every single roll. I think she barely did 3 damage off 33 dice. It was outrageous how bad the roll was for her. And had it come off, I genuinely think she probably won the game. Unfortunately, it didn't come off, and Thor was then in a position where I had 3 characters sat round him, ready to absolutely pummel him into the ground.
Did she play Doom Prophecy? Is that how she got it?
Yes, that's how she did it. Yes, because obviously with that change into Asgard, I'd completely forgot that was going to be a thing. Hannah hadn't seen the original errata around Doom Prophecy, where your defense stays, you lose that physical defense for the game.
Yeah.
And because she thought that would go away, and when that came to the next round and I was like, oh no, you had no defense, I just said, look, let's play it the way you had it in your head, because I didn't want, she'd walked into that position with the card being one way in her head, and she might have, had she known she was going to lose her physical health for the entire rest of the game, she probably wouldn't have taken that decision. So I didn't want to punish her for that decision. And we just played it like old school when it first came out. And because end of the day, like you say, Bearded Card Trader it's not a super competitive event. It's a bunch of people who are learning the game and getting better at the game. But ultimately, it's a lot more, it's less competitive natured to some of the other events we go to. So when we travel to the Midlands, as has been mentioned on this podcast before when I was not here, and I went 0-4 with X-Men, you cannot take a fluffy list to the Midlands. If you take a fluffy list to the Midlands, you will be annihilated. But you've got a bit more room for that, and you can have a bit more fun at the Bearded Card Trader, which is great, because we go to these other competitive events and you do have to sometimes take those optimized lists, and this is not one of those events. You can just take a bunch of models and smash people in the face, and it's just super thematic and super fun. And that is exactly what this game was.
Yeah, and I think just as on that whole errata, I must admit, years of playing AOS like yourself, the thought of printing out like a list of FAQs and being on it, that happened all the time. I only ever really think about the banned and restricted list. I must admit, when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I didn't realise Doom Prophecy had been errated, because I'd always played it the new way, and I must admit I'd completely forgotten that the card said the wrong way. But it's one of those ones, there's not a lot out there that has been errated. So,
yeah, and I think because we played on TTS, it maybe was changed on there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so we've obviously played on TTS a lot during lockdown, so we've just kind of got used to those rules. And when it's somebody who's picked up a box and just got that box out of, I can't remember what box it came in, that's the original print. So She knows for future games and future events, and it's absolutely fine. Yeah, it was just that for the rest of the game, wasn't it? Which is quite... And I can see why it did with the original one, with the original Doomed Prophecy, when anybody could pick it up. It needed a bit more of a negative side effect to it, shall we say, because it was super powerful. Even with the negative side effect, it was still a very popular card, and that's why it's been restricted to Asgard now.
Yeah.
So... yeah, you can see why it's for the rest of the game as opposed to just that turn. Because you could do something like Thor throwing 11 dice at 3 people.
Yeah, just for a new player or somebody who doesn't play regularly, I can understand why, like you say, that mistake would be made. And it was great of you to be able to just say, well, or just play on with those ones. Because it's not like you could sit there and go, well, you should have checked the FAQ. Everybody knows to check the FAQ. There isn't really a lot of an FAQ to check.
Yeah, and I think even if I was at a more competitive event, to be honest, it's just my nature of allowing some of those things to go. I mean, when we get to the third game, there's something allowed to go probably to my detriment in the game. It won't have decided the game, but I think it would have potentially changed a round or two. And it's up to you. It's the way you play. Some people want to play win at all costs, and not in a negative way that they're cheating or anything, but like they will pick you up on everything, and then there's other people who will let it go for the benefit of a shared experience with another person.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just brought up now. We're talking about the FAQ, and there's quite a bit of an FAQ, but I find it's more what I believe an FAQ should be, which is just clarifying things.
Yeah.
I've seen in other systems, perhaps the FAQ it kind of changes the game completely. The errata itself is relatively short. There's some bits in it, but nothing of major thing.
Obviously now all of those cards that have changed that came in original boxes are now available to reprint for yourself, so you can go and print those out and have access to the correct wording on those cards.
Yeah, absolutely. So that slightly took things to a side.
So having survived that attack, I was just slowly scoring with the extracts. I moved Domino back to the back objective where she could just... I mean, it didn't really matter too much, but it came in handy later on in the game where Hannah was activating, using the leadership to remove the Incinerate, but then I could still get that Incinerate on with Domino, which then helped me daze Thor and later take Thor out. There was another big play towards the end where Hannah kind of just went all in. She just went for the glory, and if she pulled off this mega play, she probably would have won the game. But it was one of those Hail Mary plays where you needed everything to align for you to be perfect, and unfortunately it didn't go that way, and it just ended up being a really tight game. It finished 10-16 in the end to myself, and I went 2-0, which was quite nice. I had 5-game win streak with A-Force at this point at Bearded Card Trader, so I was quite happy. And it was another great game. It's exactly the reason we go to Bearded Card Trader, because everybody there is super friendly, super nice, and it's just a super relaxed atmosphere. Definitely recommend anybody listening in the Northeast, get yourself over there once a month. Yep,
even if you're not in the Northeast, come on up or down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, me and Martin come down to the Midlands and Stockport, there's plenty, so there's no excuse for you guys not to be coming up to us sometimes.
Exactly. Right, so moving into round 3, I played Lee Hamilton, and he was running A-Force. So I got my dose of She-Hulk, and once again we played Demons Downtown, and for the second game in a row it was paired with Fear Grips World. So Hammers and Demons, another classic matchup. This one was, Lee was running She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Koye, Ghost Rider, and Shuri, I believe, whereas I played my same 5 once more. All 3 games managed to run the same 5 characters. It's interesting because it kind of, in a way, I felt like I should change it for that last game, but then I looked at it and I was like, I feel like this is the best one, and I'll talk about it at the end, but I feel like I kind of get caught into something that I don't want to be, so I am going to try and switch it up for future games. He was running Gamora, so it was Gamora, Ghost Rider, Captain Marvel, and She-Hulk. I'm sure he had Okoye in there somewhere. Yes, I think she's hidden behind a tree. So moved up. Gamora went and got the right hand one. He then played She-Hulk with Eyes on the Prize and took the other hammer. So he had both hammers on the flanks, but I managed to get the 2 demon portals and my back hammer with Ghost Rider. Then became a bit of a scrum in the middle, but I managed to get Dr. Voodoo down to the back demon portal.
Okay.
Moon Knight came in along with Blade to take the center one. Black Cat held the back one, and I believe I again went with Ghost Rider to try and take She-Hulk out of the equation. Ghost Rider died pretty early on.
Oh dear.
He had... It was interesting. His first game, he wasn't great. His last game, he wasn't great. The middle game, he was great.
Yeah, I've had enough of Ghost Rider.
Yeah, and I think people target him early if you don't have his card that allows you to come back to life.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can realistically do as such with that. This is where I seem to have run out of photos. It was a super close game. Voodoo going and getting the back point was massive, because essentially what happened was he was able to go get the back point. I think he threw Gamora away, and I had just enough power to put Brother Daniel on She-Hulk. I activated last, which meant that She-Hulk dropped her hammer, which he was able to pick up. I think he had enough power to do that as well. And she was no longer contesting that back objective. So it allowed me to take all 3 objectives. I think Black Cat had gone and stolen a hammer as well. It put me in a really strong position.
Yeah.
At that point, it finished 16-12 on turn 4. We ran out of time, so we rushed through the end. We worked out that Lee had a chance if a couple of more things had gone his way. But like I say, it was me going, and that swing turn, I think I'd used Siege as well. Managed to daze a number of his characters. Voodoo went to the back point, managed to get Brother Daniel off on She-Hulk, which kind of allowed me to get that big swing. He was ahead first 2 turns slightly, and then that turn 3 big swing. I think that kind of put him to that point where he just didn't have enough to pull it back. I think, like you say, had time gone on a bit longer, then maybe we would have been able to do a couple of different things. But unfortunately, we ran out of time. Another great game with Lee. I've played Lee multiple times on multiple systems. Another really good close game. I ended up 2-1. How did your last game go?
I got to play Paul, who you played in the first round with this Criminal Syndicate. Before the round was drawn, obviously I knew there was 3 of us on 2-0, and I didn't want Criminal Syndicate. That was the game that I didn't want. But I don't. So my option would have been, I guess, because you'd already played Paul, the only way it could have been would if I was playing you, and then Lee would have had to play Paul. It was just having played your Criminal Syndicate and having played quite a lot of Criminal Syndicate online, I do find they probably are my nemesis affiliation. I just get caught in 2 minds of how to deal with them all the time. I guess you probably just need to go all in on probably dazing a bunch of characters if you can, or go all in on killing Kingpin. And I've got that in my mind before we start the game. But then when we start the game, I don't know, things happen and you kind of forget what that first, primary objective is, and you're playing the extracts and the secures, and so I was a bit hesitant before we started playing. We played 20 Threat, and we played Alien Ship Crashes Downtown and Riot Sparks of Extremis. Paul's team was Kingpin, Omega Red, MODOK, Black Cat and Black Dwarf. Just super tanky. When he put that down, I looked at that and I was just like, Black Cat is the only one that's killable in that group, unless I'm lucky. Cards, he took All According to Plan, Brace for Impact, Carbonadian Synthesizer, Climbing Gear and Field Dressing, and I took She-Hulk, Angela, Black Cat, Enchantress, Okoye, and my cards were Battle Lust, Blind Obsession, Follow Me, Medpack and Special Delivery, Air Force affiliated card. Basically, I made a big mistake on this game at the start in deployment. I deployed Enchantress next to She-Hulk, forgetting that Enchantress wasn't affiliated, and I couldn't use Special Delivery with her. And Angela was right over the other side of the board, so special delivery was out of the question for quite a while in the game, which means you're losing a free attack from She-Hulk, which can be quite a big deal as well. I also probably went far too wide on it. With it being a single extract again, I was hoping I'd pick it up on one side and I could dominate that side. Unfortunately, first activation of the game, Paul moved up with Omega Red on the right-hand side, and my She-Hulk was on the opposite side, so his left. He just rolled what he needed to roll, picked it up turn 1, and I instantly thought this is going to be tough, because now I've got to go right into the heart of this team and try and get that extract. So I did. I chucked up Black Cat quite aggressively, hoping she'd get dazed that turn, which, to be fair, like, it was kind of a bit of a bait, and I think Paul took that bait. He did move in, give her a bit of a pummeling, but it did mean I knew I had an opportunity to then steal that from him in turn 2. So it stayed quite close after turn 1. The score was 4-2 to Paul. He was pretty comfortable because obviously he had that extract, and he was not doing too badly on his consoles. Round 2, I did manage to get forward with Black Cat, pinch the power core from Mega Red, and disappear back up the other side of the board. But during that time, I did lose Angela to Black Dwarf, just absolutely smashing her with his massive axe. I think this was the round where Paul, he forgot the rule where you can't pre-measure, and it was just totally an innocent thing. He just forgot about it, and he'd pre-measured a couple of times, and I'd let it go just because I didn't want to nitpick, to be honest. But I could see it was kind of influencing the game, because he was pre-measuring, and then actually when he realised he couldn't reach an objective, he was pulling the character back, and I was a bit like, do I say something? Do I not say something? Can I let it go for a little bit? But then it got to a point where I was like, look, Paul, I just want to let you know, like, within the rules, you're not allowed to do the pre-measuring thing. And maybe if I'd said that at the start of that, when it had happened, things might have turned out a bit differently. But, you know, he played his game well. I don't think it ultimately changed the result of the game. I think I made a much bigger mistake in the next turn that did change the game.
It's always a difficult one, isn't it, there, where you kind of, you start to let something go, and then at some point you know you've got to say something, but then you kind of think, well, should I have not said it at the start? For people that are new to the game or not sure what we're talking about, I'm assuming here you're talking about basically he's putting his measurement sticks down, he's actually moving the model, and then once he realises that with the second move he can't make it, he's moving back.
Yeah, so it was Black Dwarf, and it was quite a big base. Yeah. So I'd blocked him off from my home objective, so he couldn't get to it because I had 2 characters there. Black Dwarf's base couldn't get in there. And then he ended up moving Black Dwarf back, at which point I said, like, just going forward, this is the rule, which was fine. We just carried on playing. But what had happened was, because I'd said it after that interaction, I then moved a character later on, and he then moved Black Dwarf onto my back objective. So had I'd said it earlier, he would have moved Black Dwarf, he would have landed at my objective and gone, damn, I'm not actually on your objective. Yeah. And not scored that point. He's a bit in no man's land. What happens is, because of Kingpin's leadership, he gets onto my back objective where I've got 1 character, and he outscores me because he's healthy. Yeah. So I lose my point, he gains that point. It's only 1 point in the end of the day, and it probably doesn't change the game. Like I say, I think my mistake probably changes the game more. In turn 3, I think we both have... He has Black Cat on my back objective dazed in turn 3. And I think she was dazed in turn 2, actually. And I have my Black Cat on that back objective as well. And I stupidly moved Okoye back. She'd picked up the core after he'd managed to daze my Black Cat. And Okoye then moved back onto my back objective where his Black Cat was stood, forgetting the fact that Black Cat could then steal that objective from me because she hasn't activated yet, which he then did, stole the objective, moved twice long back into his deployment zone, and then grappling hooked and got as far out of dodge as humanly possible with that objective. And I was kicking myself so hard at this point. I couldn't believe I'd made such an absolute rookie error. And it was a good hour drive home for me, and I probably thought about that for the entire hour of the way home. But it is what
always
it
happens
is.
on the last game as well, doesn't it? It's always that last game where you're like, damn it, if only I...
Yeah, it is one of those things, and I think if it had been, if we were playing at a big event at Element and there was 128 players there and I'd have done that, I'd have beat myself up a whole lot more about it. But it was such a fun day anyway, it was not a big deal. Round 4, we, played through through the objectives. It was just a bit of me trying to get back to the core and get it back. I did get up there, but unfortunately it left a lot of my characters in a bad position. They were in a position where they're just going to get hit constantly. He had Mordok sat at the back of the board, firing stuff off at me. He'd moved Black Dwarf back there. I think Black Dwarf dazed Enchantress. Black Dwarf dazed Enchantress, and I think Enchantress was my last chance to grab that objective. Turn 4 ended up 12-11, and then turn 5, I still had a chance, I think, because I'd gained priority. So Enchantress was going to wake up, grab the objective, do one, and I could have potentially still won the game because I was only a point behind. But as you mentioned, all according to plan came out of the bag, and my Enchantress, my priority disappeared, and with my priority disappearing, I think my Enchantress disappeared, and my chances of winning the game disappeared. So it was a great game. Lovely guy, Paul. Definitely a deserved winner. Played really well. He knows his affiliation really well. And I look forward to playing him again, and not making that mistake. You learn from those things, and I definitely hope I see him again at Bearded Card Trader in the future.
Excellent. Yeah. So as you kind of hinted there, that left Paul on 3-0. So because I managed to beat Lee, that stopped the potential of 2 people on 3-0, which was always good, because I don't think JB wanted to try and work out which of the 2 would have won based on pen and paper, because as we say, Longshanks was down at the time. So Paul finished 3-0. Myself and Sam, who came with us, all finished 2-1, along with Lee Hamilton. And then we had others that went... Nobody went 0-3, which I found odd.
Oh, didn't I? Didn't notice that.
Yeah, just how the numbers must have panned out. I thought somebody had to have done, but...
Yeah, because I think Sean was on 0-2 going into the last game, but obviously he must have won his game, so that's good. Everybody got a win.
Yep. So, and it was a good variety of affiliations as well. It feels like every month we go, there is one affiliation that seems to be the flavour of the month.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy was definitely this month's flavour of the month.
Yeah, I was going to bring Guardians, and I was glad I didn't, because I think I would have been the 5th Guardians player there.
Well, Hannah did play a game as Guardians as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, as Guardians, not as Guardians. That is such a difficult one. So that meant there were 5 Guardians players, and shout out to Sam for being the top Guardian player in only his 2nd event.
GG, Sam.
Indeed. But yeah, as mentioned, overall, another fantastic event, slowly building the numbers up. It would be great to hit that 16 at some point, but for now, we're slowly building those numbers up. It seems to be a nice turnover of people. It's not the same people every time, which means that if we ever got that perfect point where everybody could make it, I'm sure we'd hit 20.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. There's obviously the guys in Sunderland are starting to get big events, and I'm trying to start build the local scene in the Teesside area as well. And all 3 of those places are travelable between us all. It's only an hour drive between all 3 places, so I definitely think between the 3 venues we could be pushing 20 at each venue potentially, which would be lovely. If we could get that many regular events with 20 odd players, it would mean we don't have to drive to the Midlands every other weekend.
Yep. And again, big shout out to the guys coming down from Scotland. I know it's a hefty drive. Myself and Tom are repaying the favour next month, and we're going up to one in Stirling, which is run by Alan, which which means unfortunately we won't be at the next Bearded Trader event, because we signed up for that before I realised the dates of the Bearded Trader ones. But yeah, it's good. With AOS, we had very strong links with the Scottish scene, and I think we'll end up doing the same with MCP. So it's good for those guys to come down, and hopefully we can replicate it by taking a few up there every now and then.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely was. I've played Alan twice now, and he's a lovely guy, and I'd definitely love to come up. Unfortunately, due to work, I can only really get one Saturday a month off, and we'd already committed to Aaron's invitational event, so I can't make this one, but I definitely will look to get to one in the future.
More Sunday events, people. That's what you're saying. More Sunday events.
Yeah, Sunday events. My local Project Games, they have committed to Sunday events. Probably going to be the third Sunday of the month, and that does fill me with joy, because that means I've got a guaranteed event once a month, less than 15 minutes from now. So yeah, brilliant.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in at slightly short notice, Anth. It's been great having you on and hearing your insights into the game. I'll try and give you more notice next time, i.e. before the event.
Yes, that'd be brilliant.
As you mentioned, you and I are down in Birmingham early next month for...
5th of February,
5th of February for a invitational from Aaron of the Web Warrior Protocols website.
Yeah.
If you haven't been on there yet, go check it out. Awesome website. Lots of really interesting articles on there. That's webwarriorsprotocols.com, I believe. We're going to go down there on the 5th. And then, as I mentioned, myself and Thomas are going up to Stirling to, I think it's something like Be My Vibranium Valentine is the name of the event that Alan's running up in Stirling. So, and then we've got 20 people, I believe, now. So he's extended it to a 4th round, which is brilliant. So that's going to be another great event, no doubt. That's it for February at the moment, but who knows what more can come.
Oh, no. Well, I think I'll be dragging you down to the Sunday one if it does get organised in time, so...
Absolutely.
I've promised him we'll hit a 12-12 if he runs it in February, so...
Ooh, February's not a good month for that promise, but we'll see what we can do. As mentioned, I'm hoping to get the YouTube channel live in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. I'll be putting all the podcasts on there, and hopefully a number of battle reports will be going up on there very soon. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.